Well, my name is Mark. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. I struggle with codependency. It's good to be with you tonight. We're going to keep going with this word art series, and tonight we're going to be talking about the word chaos, really. And then the phrase we're going to be working on is this thing called easy does it. So easy does it, or the word chaos. So I put up this picture of chaos, and isn't that kind of what it feels like when things feel like they're just completely, quote, out of control? You know, one of the questions somebody asked me once in therapy was, I was describing that's kind of how my life felt. And so my therapist goes to me, well, is that how your life is, or is that how it feels? And I'm like, no, that's how it is. And I explained to him all the things that were happening. And he goes, well, so it makes you feel out of control. And I go, yeah, it really does. And so he goes, well, do you need to be in control? Because he goes, let me ask you a question. If that picture wasn't you pulling on that side of the rope, trying to unravel all that, but that was God, would you feel out of control? And man, I really hated that question. You know, like, I really hated that question because as a codependent, it was necessary for me to be in control, amen? As a codependent, it was absolutely necessary for me to be in control. I was the person that was supposed to defend and protect everybody else, including the alcoholic. So like that was a dumb thing he was asking me, like, what if I took my hand off the rope and I let God have that end of the rope? Did I think that God would straighten out all those ends? Man, it upset me more and more, but you know what? It's a really big question. The next picture I put up was one of scrambled eggs. Has your life ever felt like scrambled eggs? You know, where everything just seems so jumbled up, you have no idea. You know, you would say like how to make a decision, or no idea what to do next, or no idea what the right thing to do is. Or like I used to go to Al-Anon when I would go, they would go, you know, like what Lori was saying, we'll do the next right thing. I'm like, well, that's fine. Why don't you tell me what the next right thing is? And then they would say, well, we're really not here in this meeting to tell you what to do. I'd be like, damn, I mean, like, I come to your meeting. You're lucky enough to have me. I come in here to learn what I'm supposed to do, and you nitwits won't tell me what to do. Like, I don't want to do this. Why is this good? Because, see, I needed to be on the other end of that rope, and I needed to make sure that, you know, the scrambled eggs really in the end stayed scrambled. Why is that? That's because in a lot of ways, whether we want to believe it or not, we get something out of chaos in a lot of ways. Amen? We get something out of chaos in a lot of ways. Do you know, like I'm going to give you an example. Did you know that more people get divorced a year or longer after their spouse, in the case of alcohol and drugs, chemical dependency, gets sober by far than they do while their spouse is in active addiction? Did you know that? Did you know? Because codependents aren't sure what to do with themselves. And since they're not doing the work they need to do, they become frustrated because, like, I'm not sure what my role is anymore. I knew what my role was when this person was out of control and I was, quote, in control, which I wasn't, but I knew all how to play the roles then. But now, when there isn't chaos, I'm not really sure what to do. Like, in a lot of ways, we like scrambled eggs, you know. Chaos is the scrambled part of it. It's like, well, if you ask that question, like the therapist asked me, what would it be like if your life was unscrambled? You might not know. Because for one of the things is, chaos is attractive to a lot of us. For one thing, it triggers us, which we don't necessarily dislike, right? Like, there's nothing like having a bad day and going, well, you know, what I need to do is I need to get home and I deserve to have A, B, C, D, or E. You know, I was on my feet all day, I'm uncomfortable, I deserve to do something that's gonna take the discomfort or the pain or whatever in my feet away, whatever it is. Like that chaos, we sometimes like the payoff of the chaos because it helps us put our accommodation into full swing. Are you following me? It lets us use what we're fond of using to deal with pain or irritability or whatever. It lets us bring that to full swing because, you know, it's been a really bad day. And all these things happen. And now I've put them all together. I'm not thinking like, what happened at 9:30? What happened at 11? what happened at 12:15? I'm not thinking, why did that happen at 9:30? Who was responsible for that? How did this come to where it is? I'm not thinking like that. I'm like, it's scrambled eggs. And when it gets to be emotional scrambled eggs, I feel helpless. I feel like I'm swimming in confusion. I feel like everything is going on upstream. I feel buried. I even feel hopeless. And see, here's the thing. Everything to me, in the middle of me holding on to that rope or me looking at scrambled eggs, everything is urgent. You ever felt like that? Everything is urgent. You know, everything is urgent. I remember the first time that when I was first married, the first time that our whole family came to our house for Thanksgiving. And like, I don't know if you ever remember what that was be like for you, if you've ever had this experience. I mean, I was so pumped. I was so excited. I'm like, oh God, this is going to be so good. Man, that was one of the toughest days of my life to have everybody there because like everything is going to have to be right. I didn't really know how to make it right. And there was stuff I didn't really count on. And people were doing stuff I didn't really count on. Man, you know, people were showing up later and all this junk. Man, everything that day was urgent. Chaos happens because everything is urgent all at once, all the time, like scrambled eggs. It's like a tyranny of urgency. It's like urgency is the king. And so my question is, based on the fact that my belief is that everything is urgent, does that mean, do you think it's possible somehow, because we're not going to want to admit this, you know, but is it possible that I have something to do with the chaos that is around me? Is it possible? Is it possible that chaos actually feeds into our character defects? Is it possible that me trying to live with scrambled eggs without breaking any of that down, is it possible that I look at scrambled eggs or I look at that bundle of stuff that guy was trying to hang on to, is it possible that feeds my character defects? If I'm impatient, if I'm stubborn, if I'm hard-headed, if I'm unwilling, if I'm not honest about the way I'm feeling, is it possible, do you think, that chaos feeds into all that? Yeah, of course it does. And so what do I got to recognize when that's happening in my life? Because it's going to happen. You're going to have days like that, weeks like that, whatever. It's going to happen. What do we do about it? Well, first of all, we got to recognize both the chaos and look at it for what it is, what we're calling chaos. And we got to look at the triggers that are affecting us at the time. Like, why is that bugging me so much? You know, like, what was the trigger for me at that first Thanksgiving dinner? Well, this is what it was. One of my schemas is abandonment. So that means like when it comes to abandonment, that means like I need things to go right so that people will come back. Are you following me? Like I need things to go right. I need for it to be a good experience so people will come back. If I'd have had that dinner at my house and I never would have seen any of those guys again at that time, I mean, that would have been a devastating deal. So I needed to build up that experience for that Thanksgiving so that those people were going to come back. That is like because I never asked myself a very important question, and this is what it would have been. What do you think, Mark, would happen if it was one of those Thanksgiving dinners like you see on TV, you know, where it was like a Christmas Vacation or whatever, you know, the movie, where if everything went wrong? What would happen if the turkey wasn't done? What would happen if the oven stopped working and the potatoes were bad? What would happen if all that happened? I remember I should have known what that was about, but I didn't. I remember I had a huge church Christmas party at this house that I had just moved into when I was working at this church in Houston. So I invite all these people over to my house on a Friday night. I've been living in the house about 6.5 weeks. It turns out that the power line going into the house out to the power box, when they installed it, some guy, when he was digging the ditch to be able to put it in, nicked the power line before they connected it. And so over time, with a lot of rain, it rains a lot in Houston, the drip, drip, drip of the water gets down into the power line, shorts the line out, and we have no power at our house. While I'm having this party, And like everybody else will make light of that and it's like fun and stuff, but man, it wasn't fun for me. Like I couldn't figure out how that could have happened. It's like you're sitting there and I'm sitting outside asking the power guy that came over like he gets a bypass thing so he can get some power eventually. I'm like, how could I have known that, man? I don't know what else I could have done. He goes, you couldn't have done anything. How would you know that water was dripping on your power line underneath the ground? And you know what my feeling was? I should have. I mean, somehow I should have known. So how do we handle this stuff with chaos? Well, number one, let's go back to the scrambled eggs thing. You put the picture of scrambled eggs up. Boom, there it is. That right there, if you have scrambled eggs, right, if you break down scrambled eggs, what do you got? Well, you got eggs, right? You got eggs that are uncracked sitting there. You got a bowl. You got a little, what do you call that thing? A whisk. And they call it, we got a whisk. And then like, it's your choice. Like, some of you guys are like, the only way to make eggs is with milk. You know, you can make them with water, only water. I don't know what all you make them with, but everybody's got their little dealie, right, of eggs. But eggs, to me, still taste like eggs. They really do. Until you put like cheese in them and salsa, right? Amen. Cheese and salsa. Good. But you break down scrambled eggs, and you got this eggs, you got water or milk, and you got the bowl, and you got a whisk. Now, none of that by itself looks very intimidating or chaotic, does it? Because we have now broken down what's in it. What are the ingredients of why I am feeling the way that I'm feeling? This is what recovery teaches us. Most people in the world look at chaos as either it went well for me or it went bad for me. Either I defeated it or I didn't. Either I handled it or I didn't. Either I controlled it or I didn't. In recovery, what do you learn? Man, you learn some really good gifts. You learn to go, yeah, this is really feeling chaotic right now. Why am I feeling chaotic? When I break down what is in front of me, it doesn't look nearly as difficult. Now, when I begin to share it with somebody else, it looks even less difficult. That's why we encourage people to have a sponsor. When you call a sponsor and you start talking to your sponsor about scrambled eggs, your sponsor is going to do what? Your sponsor isn't going to go, yeah, sucks for you. I mean, your sponsor is going to go, let's break down the chaos. Let's break down the chaos, because when we break it down, it doesn't look nearly as difficult as it did. Same thing with putting the other picture back up there. If it's not you but God on the other side of that strand, that's helpful. And secondly, what's God going to do with that strand? God's going to begin to unravel it. God's going to begin to unravel it. And he's going to begin to show you, man, the reason you're in so much pain and the reason you're so worried about this chaos is because, just like Adam and Eve, you're so busy trying to run the show, you've got yourself worked up into a dither. I like that word, dither. You know, you're in a dither. Why are you in a dither? Well, you're in a dither because you're in places you're not supposed to be. And because you're looking at a snowball that, if you break down a snowball, what is in it? Some snow rolled up that is going to melt. I'm not saying that things that are chaotic are not difficult and challenging and sometimes very, very difficult for us. I'm not saying that, but I know this. I know as long as you do not break down chaos into what its elements are and look at things one at a time, and until you do not believe that you are in charge of what is happening right there, and as long as you believe that you were not put on this earth to go it alone, you're going to find that what it is, no matter how big it is going to be more manageable than it is right now tonight. If you believe you're carrying it on your back, you have the end of the rope, you got to eat the scrambled eggs no matter what's in them, because you don't really want to know. Here's the next question. Am I adding to this chaos that I'm experiencing, or am I creating it? Am I adding to it, or am I creating it? What is my part? What is my part in this chaos? And what is not my part in this chaos? What is Johnny going to do? And if you're codependent, you're going to go, well, this is what Johnny, let me tell you what Johnny should do. Johnny should do, and you're going to have to, recovery is getting this out of your mouth, man. You got to go, you may have to pull it out word by word. I I do not know what Johnny is going to do. And see, if you're in the early stages of codependency recovery, you're not going to say it again out loud, right? Once is too much. I do not know what Johnny is going to do. What is not my part? Ask yourself this: what is actually urgent here? What is actually urgent here? I put up a quadrant. There we go. This quadrant is from Stephen Covey. He's actually a Mormon. This is not the all-time greatest book I ever read, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This one quadrant is pretty helpful. And so this is what it says. Look at quadrant 1, urgent and important. Well, what would that be like? Well, number 1, if you're bleeding to death, it's probably urgent and important. Amen? It's probably urgent and important. If the Vols actually win more than 4 games, it is urgent and important that you would go and have a steak dinner because you may never see it again. Amen? No. That's not urgent and important. Urgent and important is going to end up being matters of the heart, matters of the soul. What is going on with you and Jesus? How you are being loved, how you are taking good care of yourself. Are you spending time taking care of yourself? Are you taking yourself seriously? Most women would never say that they personally would ever find themselves in quadrant 1. Quadrant 1. They would never say that they were in quadrant 1. They would never say that. Why is that? Because most women are taught not to take yourself more seriously ever than the people you're taking care of. Amen? Like, that is to this day, 2019, exactly the way most people think. Quadrant 1, what is urgent and important? Quadrant 2, what is not urgent, what does not have to be done today? What does not have to be done today, but I recognize that it's important. So, like for me, it's like we had that talk on boundaries, that series on boundaries a few months ago, and some guy who was a pastor who was watching it goes, I really appreciate what you had to say about the married couple that called you up on Friday afternoon and wanted to know if you could meet at their office, because their marriage was struggling. And I said, well, the thing was, I asked him, I'm like, well, did your marriage get to where it is today? No. I'm like, well, then are we going to have to solve it today? No. Well, that's what I mean. Important, but not urgent. We got to go back to that slide. Whoever's running up there, will you get bored of that one, or what happened up there? Oh, just kidding. Not important. Okay, so then you go not important. Urgent. It's urgent in most cases because somebody else thinks it's urgent. It's urgent in most cases in that quadrant because somebody else thinks it's urgent and it's actually not important. That's quadrant number 3. Somebody thinks it's urgent, but because they do doesn't mean you have to think it's urgent. Are you following me? And then quadrant number 4 is not urgent and not important. Some stuff that we think is urgent and important and critical and only we can attend to is actually not urgent and not important. Where is help available? Because if you keep talking about getting some outside help, where is it available? Ask yourself that question. Who do I know who can help me? Who do I know who can help me to understand what's going on? Who do I know who I can talk to about this? Who do I know who's going to help me to write it down and put a paper on it and try to make sense of what is happening? Who do I know who's going to be able to help me do that? Next deal, number 6. When you are in the middle of trying to deal with chaos, avoid blame. If you're codependent, you're going to want to blame yourself. If you're not codependent, you're going to blame anybody else in your path that you possibly can. Because if they would just, if she would just, if he would just, if somebody would just, well, this wouldn't be happening. Number 7, realize that we are not in control of everything. We are just in control of us. We are not in control of everything. We are just in control of us. Number 8, and if you believe that that is a ridiculous statement, I really need you to go to the family and friends class after this service tonight and listen to what we're talking about enabling. Number 8, I got to examine and deal with my character defects because they are triggering me. They are extending and accelerating the chaos. They are making things seem much more impossible than they are in fact are. Number 9, I got to use the tools of recovery. Practice, practice, practice. Like there are going to be a bunch of football games played this Saturday. People are in the middle of the playoffs, the baseball playoffs, right? Everyone playing baseball in the playoffs, the National League playoffs, everybody playing football Saturday and Sunday, they are not sitting here this week watching TV and going, well, when Saturday gets here, we'll get up, we'll have scrambled eggs, and we're going to go play a game. They are going over every single scenario you can imagine. What happens in 4th and 2? What happens in 3rd and 11? What happens when we're on the 9-yard line? What happens when we have a blocked kick? What happens with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J? Practice, 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 practice. Why do you practice? You practice because you want to know that when the game is on, you've seen it, done it, and felt it before. That's what recovery is really all about, is I get so much recovery that I'm prepared for life on life's terms. Practice, practice, practice. Daily practice for the weekly game. It's like someone was telling me in our discernment group that they went out one time over to Cades Cove, and they were riding a bike. So they got off their bikes and they were looking around, and they literally see a bear. And one of the kids with them, who hadn't ridden a bike in a while, kind of struggled for a minute trying to get on the bike and get the bike moving. That's because he was unaccustomed to riding the bike. So when the bear was there, your heart rate is going up, you're feeling the chaos, you haven't really practiced for what that's going to be like, and the bear looks 10 times faster, 10 times bigger and everything else because you can't ride the bike that you really know how to ride, that you don't know how to ride then because the stimulation that you're in the middle of, you've never really practiced for. One day it says, Jesus said to his disciples, let's cross to the other side of the lake. So they got into the boat and started out. As they sailed across, Jesus settled down. Get this. Jesus on this boat settles down for a nap. This is who ought to be in charge of the chaos in your life, the guy who takes a nap. Amen? But soon a fierce storm came down on the lake. The boat was filling with water. They were in real danger. Now get this, listen to this part of the story. The disciples went and woke him up. While they were in the middle of this chaos, Jesus was sleeping restfully. Who do you want to be in your boat? They woke him up shouting, Master, Master, we're going to drown. When Jesus woke up, he rebuked the wind and the raging waves. Suddenly the storm stopped and all was calm. Then he asked them, where's your confidence? The disciples were terrified and amazed. Who is this guy? They ask each other. When he gives a command, even the wind and the waves obey him. Who do you want to handle the stuff in your life that is bigger than you are? Would you rather it be you? Or would you rather it be somebody who can make the wind stop? Would you rather it be you? Would you rather it be somebody who can wake up out of a deep sleep and stop the waves? Who would you rather take care of the stuff in your life? It's a question. Like, you're going to have to answer it. I'm going to pray to finish up tonight, and then I'm going to ask Pastor Spence to come up and celebrate the Lord's Supper with us. Sweet Jesus, thank you for this time in this room. Pray for everybody that is in here, Lord, and pray that our conversations after church tonight will be strong, helpful, and healthy. In Jesus' sweet name, amen. Thanks so much.